All right, my beautiful people, thanks so much for tuning in into another episode of HK Baker Show here tonight. We got JM Balbuena with us.
Hi.
JM is not only a Navy vet, an entrepreneur, but also a Cannapreneur, which is a
Right.
word I learned from you. But more than that, you're an advocate and you're Latina. I think originally from the Dominican, right?
That's right.
Super awesome.
Yeah, thank you.
Well, welcome. Thank you for being here. One of the
Thank you
things I
for
want to
having me.
say, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, I just said thank you for having me.
Yeah, 100%. One of the things that I think is super interesting and exciting about you is you're not only a critical thinker, but a doer, which is very clear. I listened to your book before,
Thanks.
we sat down here and after I met you for the first time. But congratulations to publishing such an awesome book.
Oh, thank you so much. I'm glad you found some insight in it.
You bet. Um, I think not only is the book great from a if you want to learn more about the cannabis business standpoint, but really more so from a personal development standpoint as well. And I feel like you're unpacking a lot. But yeah, we'll link to the book in the show notes. Unfortunately, I don't have a prop here right now, but we'll find it and show you what the book looks like. Um, I
Sorry
think
I didn't bring one. It's my fault.
that's a-okay. I think anybody who's really interested in the cannabis business or cannapreneurship, who's interested in business strategy and acumen, and then who's interested in personal growth, will find your book interesting and insightful.
I hope so.
Yeah, and for those of you who like audiobooks, you also have an audio version that you
Right.
read yourself.
Yeah, I'm the person narrating. It was so much fun, and I think too, it helped me. Sometimes I think at that point where I was narrating the book, to have the audiobook available, I was going through some of the things that I mentioned, like in some of the circumstances that you may find yourself as a entrepreneur or as a business owner, and reading it, it was so like therapeutic for me. So it's also available in audio, and hopefully. And for me, I'm an audiobook person.
Yeah,
So
same.
once I wrote the book, I'm promoting it, and I'm thinking, man, if I was me, I'm not sure if I would like actually finish reading the book. So I was like, let me cater to my people.
Right.
So that's why I decided to do the audiobook as well.
Yeah, that's totally fair. And I listen to your book on my daily walks and on my
Nice.
way to work. So I had your voice in my ear until today because I just finished your book today.
It was that weird.
No, it wasn't weird at all. It was actually the first time that I had the opportunity to kind of have a acquaintance slash friend read a book to me. So that
Oh
was
wow.
awesome.
You're welcome.
Uh, but I kind of made an introduction, but maybe briefly tell us about your upbringing, because not only are you, I guess, Black African American, but you also have the whole Latina background, which I think is really interesting, because you came to this country literally as an immigrant. Would that be fair to say?
Yeah, absolutely. I was born in the Dominican Republic. I came to America when I was 13. I've been here since. I served my country. I went to college, University of Scranton. Then once I graduated, I started working. Hated being part of the corporate world. It was not for me. So I've always, I think I told you earlier, always was interested in the military. When I was a kid, I actually had a little sailor suit, and it was like my favorite outfit to wear on the weekends. So I kind of always saw me like as a sailor, and when the opportunity came, and I don't know if I told you what the reason why I joined
Not yet.
was. The reason why I joined was to pay for my student loan. So
Okay.
I graduated college. Fortunately, I didn't have loans for my bachelor's degree,
Mm-hmm.
But then I got my master's. That's when I had some loans there, like $60,000.
Okay.
And I'm like looking for ways to get this paid for without me having to pay for it.
That's fair.
So, I'm working and I'm like, man, these loans are going to come up. Like, I had an entrepreneur, even though I had a job, I still was doing like side gigs and investing in different things.
Well, pause real quick, right?
Okay.
I mean, like, I think that's so interesting because one thing that you shared with me is, you're going to school, you're getting your degree in marketing. Do I recall that correctly? And yet, upon graduation, it's hard to find a well-paying.
Correct. At least doing what I wanted to do, which was more like the journalism side of things. I went to school for marketing. While I was in school, I had an internship in the insurance world. So I graduated, had that insurance background, the hands-on experience plus the degree.
Right.
And then I barely have experience in the journalism side of things. I did have a radio show. I also had, while in college, I also was the editor for the diversity newsletter in the school.
Mm-hmm.
So, but those things are kind of like not necessarily consider experience, even though they were extreme. Like I wrote articles for the newspaper and things like that because that was really my passion. But upon graduation, those jobs were either pretty much part-time pay, and no benefits.
Full-time job, part-time pay.
Pretty much.
Yep.
And then you had these corporate jobs where even though you hate what you're doing, you at least can move out of your mom's house,
Right.
on your own.
Yes.
At that point. So I chose that route and still continued to pursue everything else that I wanted to do.
Well, and I think that's worth maybe pausing and highlighting just for a second here, right? Like you mentioned that you had taken on, because you were passionate about music and creation, you'd taken on artists as a manager.
Yeah.
Took your W-2 money.
Yes.
To help build up this talent, right?
100%. And I had so much fun. His name was JM Balbuena, and he was a reggaeton artist.
Oh, sweet.
Yeah, he was like around my age.
And this is on the East Coast now, right?
On the East Coast. So he, I believed in his music, so I used to take my paycheck and invest it in, getting him recording time, getting him, photo shoots and things like that. It was fun. I had a great time, building his bio, and I would do that myself. Including, like,
how lucky was he?
I had a cousin.
You didn't know it at the time.
I mean, I don't know. We were both having fun. He was following his passion.
But as an artist, if you're a known name, just having that sort of support with somebody who's business minded is huge.
Mm-hmm. Well, I had a cousin that he worked at a club, so I got him a performance at a club in New York. I got him to perform at my school, at my old college, because I had graduated. But we used to have events like diversity events and things like that. So I got him a gig, taking him back to my school, and I had fun doing all of that. And then these student loans payments started to come in the horizon. So then I was like, I have to find out how to get this paid for because I don't want to pay for it. I already had the degree, and I don't know if this happens to everybody, but from the moment you graduate, I think that the student loans payments start coming in like a year after. They give you like a year.
Okay.
And in that year, I'm over here slinging my pay for, for this artist. And then I was like, fuck, I gotta pay these. So I started looking things up on how can you get a loan forgiveness for student loans. And that's when the military kept coming up. And actually, I tried to join the military right after high school, and my mom was like, no. That's just not going to happen. You're the first kid I'm putting through college, and you're not robbing me from that.
So you were saying you were the first kid who graduated from college, right?
Well, that she was going to put through
college.
Oh,
that she was going to put through college, right.
Or, my parents didn't go to college. Mm-hmm. So in her mind, she's working and, and building these businesses so her kids can go to college. So my oldest sister she got married right after high school.
Mm-hmm.
So then I'm the next one, and she's like, "Girl, you're going to college."
So you had to be the bearer of the torch.
And I also wanted to go to college,
Mm-hmm.
but I was very interested in the military. But 9/11 had happened, and she's like, "We're at war. You're not doing this, da 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 da." So I decided to go to college, and fortunately, she covered all of that. I did get some scholarships, and then whatever was left over, because I went to a private university,
Mm-hmm.
she helped with that. Then when I got my master's, that's when I took on the
Student
loans.
loans. Okay.
Yes, correct. So I was not trying to pay for those myself, and the military kept coming up as like loan forgiveness,
Sure.
and that was my hack. I'm like, oh, I get to do something that I wanted to do, and they pay for my student loans. Sign me up.
Okay, that's fair. Win-win situation for everybody.
Yeah, so I did it. They paid for my student loans. I served my time, and boom, here we are.
Interesting. And so now, then you did the military, but upon graduation, you went back to the insurance business, right?
Yeah, so I joined the military. I did a 4-year term, and then I did 2 years inactive reservist.
Okay.
And then, so I hated corporate America, joined the military. That was my ticket out of corporate America and to pay the loans. And then I went back to insurance, and I don't know what I was thinking, but it was also safe. Again, I left the military. I'm looking for jobs, and I'm pretty much going back to like
What you knew.
not what I knew, because honestly, I was not trying to go back to insurance. But again, that's like the best paying job that you can get, where you have stability. A lot of the times around Christmas, they give you a bonus.
Mm-hmm.
And I was good at it. Even though I hated it, it was something that once I started working there and I understood like the systems, I was going to be great. Even if I hated it. So, and that's exactly what happened.
And I feel like a lot of people find themselves in the spot where they can tolerate doing a job, but it really is not aligned with what
Right.
really they're passionate about. And I feel like sometimes this word is overused, but what's in alignment with who they are and how they flow, if you will, right? But on top of that, while you were in the military, you had a pretty traumatic experience, right?
I did. I was an aviation electronics technician.
Okay.
I worked on F-18 fighter jets.
Mm-hmm.
So while deployed in an aircraft carrier, I was blown. One of the aircraft went up on power, and I was walking behind it. So
Wait, let's picture this. So you're working on the aircraft, you're walking behind the aircraft,
yeah, so the aircraft landed.
right?
So when aircraft land, they kind of go into this area where it's called the de-arm area. So in that area, they de-arm them.
Right.
So now people can be around them. Like they make sure whatever weapons are armed, they
Yes.
are de-armed. So once they give us the green light, then you can cross from one area to another. I was gonna go check on the jet. It was actually my commanding officer flying it, and something happened. I don't know if it was the weather. This was in 2012, so I don't remember that well. But as I'm walking behind it, he kind of pressed power, and just.
So did the jet, like the turbine, actually blow you through?
Yeah, it blew me away. I landed, I want to say, like 20 feet away from where I was walking. And then I had a concussion. My cranial, like this protective gear that we wear in our heads, it snapped
Cracked.
in half. Yeah. So
Thank God you were wearing that.
Yeah, like even like my shirt came off. It was like
Woof.
a lot of power. Yeah, it was horrible. But yeah, so that's pretty much.
Yeah. Well, first of all, I'm sorry that that happened to you because I think, from what you've shared with me, after that, nothing was the same for you anymore in
Right.
many ways, especially in regard to your sleep.
Yeah, so that's like it disrupted my sleep completely, like to this day. Um, and while I was working, because obviously that accident happened, I actually went back to work and realized like that I was concussed while I was at work. So they sent me back, and then from there on, I would be I would be in my rack on the boat, like not falling asleep.
Your rack is your bed, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
the rack is like where you sleep.
Sure.
And it came a time where like you're deployed, all you do is pretty much
Yes.
work out,
Mm-hmm.
and sleep.
Right.
That's pretty much all you can do.
Sure.
You're on a ship, and it's not a fun cruise. It's a
It's not a
military
cruise ship, yes.
Right. So, there came a time where, and honestly, I'm not thinking about anything. I'm just like, fuck, I'm having trouble falling asleep. So I'm at work. I'm working like 18, 20-hour shifts so I'm like bleeding into the next shift because I'm like, well, I'm not going to fall asleep. Let me work until I'm tired.
So for people to understand this, right, and I've dealt with very severe insomnia in my life before, you cannot fall asleep. Sometimes,
Right.
well, what would you say, like on an average night after this incident happened, you would get? Like how many hours?
Like 3 the most.
Yeah.
3.
So for most of us who've done 3 to 5 hours of sleep for whatever great reason, you know that it's very hard to sustain for a long period of time and have your mood balanced,
Right.
have anything really that you need to function as a human go well for you. Yes, you can do it, but the way you feel is probably terrible.
Absolutely.
Would that be fair to say?
Absolutely. I think that leads to all sorts of mental health issues.
Sure.
Even like physical ailments. Like, imagine not sleeping, especially with me. It happened. So that was in 2012. While I was deployed, they were giving me NyQuil and Benadryl so I can regulate my sleep. And then I came home, and that's what I'm taking, Benadryl and NyQuil while I'm still in the military to be able to sleep.
And it probably doesn't do squat for the most
No,
part, right?
like at some point I was just like, no. So I started just working out. I used to run 3 miles a day. I even like hurt myself just running every single day, which they were like, you should not run 3 miles a day, 7 days a week. But I'm like, I need to physically get myself super tired.
Otherwise, I won't be able
to. So I can, get some sleep. But fortunately, I came out. Even though I went back to insurance, another veteran that had also just gotten out of the military, he introduced me to cannabis. And that was, I want to say, almost a year after I had gotten out. Yeah, so my friend he had gotten out before me, he introduced me to cannabis.
Mm-hmm.
And that day, pretty much, I felt like before the accident.
So were you smoking or were you doing edibles or what?
No, I was actually smoking.
Yeah.
So I had never smoked even I had smoked in college from a bong. But not necessarily a bong, but in college I did more like pipes and blunts.
Right. But I think you mentioned to me it really didn't do anything for you other than make you sleepy, right? And that's why that wasn't...
College smoking was more like a social thing, and I always question like why people smoked at parties. Fair. Because I always felt sleepy. So, and I should have known because damn, I'm having sleeping problems.
Yeah. What you did not make the logical connection.
I did not. So, but not only I slept not only did I just sleep okay, like that night,
You felt emotionally better.
oh, 1000%. When I tell you everything, like I was laughing, everything was funny, to the point that my partner at the time, she was like, girl, you need to smoke weed. Because my whole demeanor, it was
Sure.
just like the tension kind of like went away or like was tucked. I don't know what it was, but to be honest with you.
But I mean, that's a very deadly cycle, right? You can't sleep for multiple nights. Then a lot of your mental energy and resources are spent around how do I get this sleep, and then how do I function at
that
work?
and then tired.
How do I function in relationships?
Right.
I mean,
Right. 1000%. That's exactly what it was. And mind you, while you're going through it, you're just trying to survive. You're not even feeling like, oh, I need help. But in that moment where I saw like that clarity of like, oh my gosh, I'm still here. Like I'm still that person from before, which I wasn't even questioning that something was wrong. I was just like, bro, I can't sleep. Like I'm going through all these things. And then internalizing, because this is not something that I was talking to people. I would talk to like the VA, the Veterans Affairs, because they were checking me out because of the concussion. They, were trying to keep track of that. So I would communicate to them like what was going on. But in that moment where all that tension was kind of gone and everything, that's when it dawned on me like, you need help. Like you need professional help.
yes.
So then I started seeking it. And I started like my consumption journey.
Okay.
And then experiencing that healing, and then at that, progressively gaining control of my sleeping, and okay, this is what I'm doing to be able to sleep. Now I'm resting. Now I'm thinking clearly. Then I'm like, I can't believe this thing has been legal around me, and I never even noticed, realized there were dispensaries where I lived. There were at least 12 dispensaries all around me, and I had no clue.
Were you in California at that point in time?
Yes, I was, because the military brought me to California. And I would come to San Diego with the military a lot. So while I was in the military, I said, when I get out, I'm moving to San Diego.
Yeah.
And so I did. So I was living in Chula Vista, and Chula Vista had like 12 dispensaries, and I never even noticed.
Right.
And I didn't even realize how easy it was to get a medical recommendation from a doctor.
Sure.
Went through that process.
Well, if there was no need and you associated weed in college with getting sleepy, like most people, unless they have sleep issues, don't voluntarily wake up and say, well, I want to be hella sleepy today, right?
True.
But so then after that first night of this smoking cannabis and feeling normal again and feeling like, hey, this brings back my mental faculty so I can actually address the severe issue that I have. How did you then smoke weed every day, or like?
No, not so. I would say no, I didn't smoke weed every day. That's when I started like researching, because I come from like a heavy Christian background. I'm thinking to myself,
and the Lord
am I
may
a
not
drug addict? Not even the Lord, because I've never been like religious or anything like that.
But sure, and
but
it is this myth in our society that weed is a gateway drug, and once you open the floodgates, you become a meth addict, you go to hell.
Yeah, so I never was necessarily believing all of that, because like I told you, I smoked weed in college.
Right.
Big deal. I never thought it was a big deal or anything like that. And again, I'm smoking weed now, and I'm like, let me do my research on this. So I started looking it up. That's when I found out, there's plenty of dispensaries around. It's been legal in California since 1996. Mind blown. I had no clue. I'm for medical purposes. Never heard that before. Looking it up, people use it for this, people use it for that. Most of it at that point, that was 2014, 2015.
Mm-hmm.
Anecdotal things. Then I'm looking, there's like a whole community in San Diego And then I go to the dispensary myself because at that point I was consuming what my friend was bringing. Then I go to the dispensary, and that's when I was like, this is a whole freaking business, an industry. So then now I'm not looking up only, to justify, let me consume this. This is a whole thing, so I'm looking
this
at
is a business.
the predictions for the markets, at
which
that
you
point,
detail at length in your book.
So at this point, it's adult use is legal in Oregon, it's legal in Colorado. People are, opening businesses. And then I'm thinking about veterans like myself that come out
and have PTSD.
Have PTSD. A lot of us are dealing with a lot of things that are unique to our community. And then a lot of us may feel like I was feeling like, well, there's the stigma, and then is it really a medical thing? Then you find out there's research and things like that.
Well, and misinformation here in the United States, and I think around the world it becomes more prevalent, is huge, right? Because there's always some sort of monetary aspect behind the misinformation.
True.
So then we do propagate certain things about, let's say, weed, so that the players who do not have an interest in the proliferation of this industry, for whatever reason, push out this misinformation that maybe if you do smoke this joint, you'll go to hell, or you do become a drug addict, or it is terrible for your health. So then, even the research is not the easiest thing. So then...
Absolutely. You have to, weed through the BS.
Right.
1,000%.
And so now you find, okay, one, it helps people with certain issues like sleep, perhaps PTSD, but so you also see the business side of things.
The opportunity that comes with being a part of something that, number one, is proven to have helped a lot of people. Specifically here in California, there's so much evidence of people working, the whole legalization for medical purpose of cannabis in California was because people were in need. Back in the 90s when the AIDS epidemic was
rampant,
running rampant, more specifically here in California, in San Francisco, there were advocates that were providing, cannabis in the form of edibles, actually.
Okay.
To people that were dealing with
HIV or AIDS.
When whatever happens to you once your body is in HIV, or not HIV, the AIDS mode.
Okay.
HIV, you're still more or less functional, but once you're in full-blown AIDS, there's a lot of happening to your body, and cannabis was helping all these people with dealing with the pain, dealing with being nauseous, dealing with a lot of those different things.
Well, I see it too for cancer patients these days, right?
Yes, and that's another thing. So, so you had advocates like Dennis Perone, Brownie Mary, which she's the whole weed brownie is attributed to her.
What's her name?
Well, her name is Mary Jane Radburn.
Okay.
So, but they call her Brownie Mary because she pretty much pioneered the infused brownie.
Okay.
And that she used to infuse brownies to give to AIDS patients and cancer patients in her community.
Yeah.
And she actually went to jail 3 times because of that. They would catch her with oil and, flour and chocolate.
That Brownie Mary sounds like a real criminal.
Right?
Helping
And she was an older lady, too.
Right. Was she African American?
No, she was definitely...
She was a white lady?
She was a white lady, and
okay.
I'm pretty sure that's why she didn't spend that much time in jail. And there are a lot of people of color that were advocates, but we couldn't be advocates
because
they were, because we were put in jail immediately, and they locked away the key. They locked us away and threw the keys.
I meant to say this earlier to you. If you guys happen to find yourselves in San Diego and you want to see who got incarcerated for what, if you're down by, I think it's Liberty Station, there's a temporary holding cell that portrays the crimes, and it's open to the public, so you can actually just walk in there And no, it's not Liberty Station. It's right by the water. It's there's a Puesto, and
Is it an Old Town?
it's not Old Town. It's here by the water. It's why can't I think of it? I'll find out where it is and I'll link it in the show notes. But anyway, you can see a holding cell, and these crimes, they have the funniest names, but oftentimes you do see a lot of African American faces, especially for drug possession, right? And so yeah.
Yeah, but essentially, I realized, just to circle back,
Yeah.
there was an opportunity not only in business. I come from an entrepreneurial background. Both of my parents have always had their own businesses and several businesses.
Mm-hmm.
So it was in my nature, to look at what that set forth. And once I felt comfortable, I actually met someone, my current business partner, randomly when I was already in that journey of understanding, like, hey, this is an industry, da 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 da.
Yes.
Randomly, this person shows up at my house, and he's working on a legal cultivation site here, local. He said the word legal a few times,
Sure.
and then I started asking questions, and then I started pretty much, I would say, interning for him. Well,
Yes.
he had some administrative work.
And were you still working full time at that point in time when you're interning?
I mean,
so you're working full time.
That's my MO. I like to get my checks.
Right.
Look, let me tell you something. I don't like to struggle.
Yeah.
So it would be, for me, it's easier to have this job and work those 8 hours, or even 10 if I have to.
Right.
But when I'm out, I'm going to be working on my own thing.
Okay.
That's just, even if it's not paid for, if it's paying me in knowledge, if it's paying me in the potential of building something from there, I'm going to go for it. And that's just my MO. When I was in college, I was writing articles, DJing, radio show, internship, part-time job at Finish Line, and getting my degree. Graduated, managing an artist, writing articles for a few different websites, interviewing people. I interviewed Alicia Keys, and one of those was Damon Dash. So I was doing things, and they barely paid me, but they fed my soul. So,
yes. Well, and pause this, right? They barely paid you, but they fed your soul. And so many of us wake up and, I think 80 or 85% of the workforce in America is somewhat disenchanted with their jobs. So if you find yourself sitting on the couch exhausted from your job and just, maybe drinking or doing whatever and watching TV, we're not saying this to point a finger, but there is...
And it's okay to do that.
Of course it's okay to do that.
But you can't be unhappy with what you're doing and then using your time to do something else instead of pushing your own agenda.
Right. And the point is, well, I need to decompress, right? But I think you can take incremental process toward, like you said, feeding or nurturing your soul, and then carving something out that actually maybe is better in line or more meaningful to you,
I mean, even right now, I'm the CMO of the parent company of Jack's Cannabis. So I'm the CMO at Prime Harvest. I work directly with managing Jack's. I have, I'm writing 2 books at the same time. I am, I'm working on my own brand, Boycott Shitty Weed. I and getting the message there, building metaverses for that, planting seeds there. I have the podcast. These are all things that feed my soul. Most of them I'm investing into them, but if I am not working on those things, that's when, if I'm not creating, I should say that. If I am not creating, I don't feel like I'm being useful. And maybe that's a problem that I had, but that I have, but I need to create. I need to create and I need to make money. If I'm doing those 2 things,
yes,
my life is moving forward.
Right.
If one of those is not happening, if I'm broke, I'm not happy. If I'm not creating, I'm not happy. If I'm doing both, life is evolving and I'm building something. That's just how I operate, and I identify. I was able to identify that from a young age, so that's how I move in life.
And I love that, right? And it's a message that we don't hear enough, because what catches attention on social media oftentimes, I find, and I'm talking about social media because that's where a lot of us now consume information rather than a traditional TV, uh, get quick, get rich quick
Right.
themes. You talk about it in your book that millionaires who won the lottery, I think it's, you said 80% within 5 years of winning the lottery are broke because they didn't learn the skills that it takes to build a business, to manage wealth. So there's a lot that you're saying, and I don't think anybody can be like you. You said it in the end of your book. I think it's challenging to do what you
Absolutely.
do, right? Because you have
It's not easy.
correct.
Nobody said it would be easy. What it is you need to find what feeds you, and you feed that beast, because that beast is what's going to keep you moving forward and upward without, I want to say, complaining about. I would say what that means is you're actively engaged in moving your life and the needle the way you want to move it.
Right.
Sometimes the needle's going to move a centimeter.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes an inch, sometimes a mile, sometimes it's not going to move. But you just got to figure out how to get it to move at some point. And that I think that's where a lot of people might give up when, okay, well, it's not moving.
And that's why I called you in the beginning a critical thinker, but also a doer, right? Because a lot of times people think they have good intentions, they want to start a business, they want to become entrepreneurs, but they spend all their time researching and they never execute and do. So how did you make it happen so I assume, since we've spoken, that now you're full-time working as an entrepreneur, I assume you had a little bit of income from the military, from, getting out of there. But how did you how did you make this transition, especially living here in San Diego where the cost of living is very high? How were you able to do that, from a cash flow standpoint? Because, you go at it, you talk about it in great length, that the cannabis industry is still kind of new. So how did you make that transition? And what are your streams of income, so that people who want to get started have a more realistic idea of, for example, what it took for you, right?
Okay, well, what it took for me. When I got out of the military, my last deployment, like you said, I'm a critical thinker. I'm thinking, okay, I'm getting out in a year. What should I be doing? You know what I'm saying? In preparation to not be broke and create. So in that year leading to, I had one deployment, and what I did is I saved all my money. So
Okay.
I came out of the military, I had 20 grand in the bank.
Delayed gratification, another keystone of success in life, right?
I'm thinking, I am in the middle of nowhere, Central Valley, California. I am cool, I like to live a good lifestyle, so it's not like I was completely
living impoverished,
depriving myself from, but I got a roommate, so half the rent was paid by somebody else, and saved up all my money from that deployment, and there are plenty of free things that you can do in Dubai, that you can do, to all those ports that we went to, instead of renting a hotel, just for me and somebody else. Nah, it was 4 of us in that hotel. And
Okay.
I will make sure that that's what's happening, because I know how much of my paycheck I'm keeping, which is when you're deployed, 90% of it. So that's where I started. So
Right.
I got that money, so I left the military, and I didn't work for a month. I was looking for jobs. Actually, I started looking for jobs before I left the military.
Okay.
So in the last 4 months, I was going to job interviews and things like that. So by the time I came out, I already had jobs lined up. So saved my money there. Once, within like almost 2 years, that's when I started in cannabis. To be honest with you, I took my retirement money out.
Okay.
Because I was working for a startup, and that company,
So what, did you have like a 403B or something like that?
So I had the retirement money from the military, which is the, what's it called?
It's one of those retirement plans.
Military
Gotcha.
retirement.
So you cashed that in.
So I cashed that out.
Huge risk too, by the way, guys, right?
1,000%.
Because anybody who knows like how compound interest and investment work, like it takes a lot of conviction to cash in your retirement money to invest that into a business. It's
Right.
not a recommendation, but it's your story, right?
No, that's my story.
Yeah.
So in my mind, I am investing into the startup, which that's pretty much what happened. So now, once I pretty much started working for this company, which is my business partner that I met randomly, and started working with him. The company went through some rough patches.
Sure.
This is 2016, 2017.
Yes.
Weed is, still going through, it's still doing it right now, but back in the day it was even more so. So there were times where I was not getting paid for 3 months.
Okay.
But I believed in what we were doing, in the vision, in the fact that I gave everything up and going the extra mile in this company. Next thing you know, now I have ownership in it.
Okay.
Sweat equity.
Right.
Which, when things got hard, I remained. I used whatever resources were available to me and didn't complain. I just kept showing up. Next thing you know, hey, here are your shares.
Right.
Significant. And from there, at some point, the company, I wanted, and I speak about this in the book, I wanted to have my own name in cannabis.
Sure.
So I started like managing social media accounts, creating content. From there, I then got some clients that I still have to this day, where I'm, helping them grow their social media. And then that, like, for one of my clients, I've had for almost 5 years now.
Mm-hmm.
And that check clears every single week. And, I now more so have a team that helps me out with that. But so now, being a part of the management of Jax, then I also have my payment from there.
So you have built multiple income streams, one, and two, you have the mindset to defer income, even give up your retirement to play the long game.
Exactly.
Right? So now,
because now my retirement becomes this company.
Sure.
And with that is, now I have skin in the game, in the fact that now I am part of the decision making, not just an employee, not just
Sure.
An intern, not just this person. Now I'm literally at the helm, making the company move forward. I will bet on myself. As you can see, I always bet on myself. So in my mind, like, this is not going to fail because I'm involved, and I'm involved in the decision making. So I'm very confident in the fact that it was an investment into my retirement. So then I started, while I took that year where I was doing my own thing, I also started the clothing line, which to me is more of like a creative way to promote or to do advocacy in a different way.
Sure.
And from there, that's a stream of income. Then I wrote my book. That's a stream of income. And here we are, where, a little bit and a little bit just equates a lot once they're all combined collectively. So
yeah, that's super fantastic. So now, I guess if people were thinking numbers, and I'm not going to hold your feet to the fire here because I'm sure some of it is private, but can you give people like a realm? This is kind of like how long it took to be a self-sustaining entrepreneur without the need. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So that's just my cannabis
Right.
side of things. with my money, I'm an entrepreneur. I invest. So most recently, I've invested in a 3D printing company.
Okay.
That also, builds like in Web3 and things of that nature.
Oh, sweet.
Then I invested in a media production company. And then outside of cannabis, I helped my family found a meat production and distribution company in New Jersey. So, and that was even before I joined the Navy.
Okay.
So from that company, being a founding member, I also get money on a yearly basis that then I invest in all these other things, and even invest in my cannabis businesses and try to grow it from there. So I think I've been very fortunate to come from a family that starts from
Absolutely.
scratch, because to be honest with you, let me tell you the story with that family business. My uncle had been working with a partner for 20 years. My uncle, he is a chef. And
Okay.
he created all the formulas for the meat products that were created there. And 20 years later, he's already contemplating like slowing things down.
Sure.
And, hand things off. And then he asked for paperwork, and he realized he was only an employee of a company that he thought he was a 50-50 partner. He never read any of the document. He just signed. It was like one of those horror stories. So when he found that out, he said, "I'm out."
Yes.
He literally just walked away.
That's tragic.
And then my mom was like, "You know what? My uncle started working. He started doing his own thing on the side, starting with nothing, doing the sausages, and supplying like 2 bodegas in Jersey." And my mom was like, "You know what? You should just start your own company. I'll invest." She put down some money. He bought some equipment, and we've been growing ever since. Now we're a multi-million-dollar company.
Wow.
Doing business all throughout the East Coast.
Wow.
For me, the way that I came in, I was getting my master's, my MBA, and I used the company as a case study all throughout my master's. So I built the business plans. I created the website, all the content for it. I even took pictures for it, and that was like my first time doing photography and everything. And my uncle was like, "Yeah, you're a founding member of this," and we've been growing since then. And that was a seed that I planted there. Once the company was able to start doing payouts, my name was in the bag, and I was getting my bag.
Cool. And look, guys, I think not everybody has a family that has that sort of mindset, but
Right.
I think over time you can find these opportunities with other people who are aligned in that journey, right?
100%.
It is difficult to find a good partner because startups are notoriously like partnerships are notoriously like pitfalls and landmines. But that doesn't mean you can't find somebody who you would like to work with.
Right.
But I mean, that's a great opportunity. There's a little bit of luck, but there's also all of your sweat equity from your MBA and then being able to channel that for the right.
I mean, because all of that I did it for free.
Right.
I built the website. I even wrote, the things that I already knew how to do.
Yes.
In my mind, I'm looking at my uncle starting a business from scratch after working 20 years.
Right.
And building a company. I mean, we all thought that was his company, and then he comes home one day, he's like, "I don't own anything."
How heartbreaking.
So from there, I'm like, "Oh, well, I can help you with this. Let me build you this website. Let me take some pictures. Hey, I've been writing bios for, you know whose bio I wrote in one of my little gigs? Do you remember 106 in Park? Oh, you're not from America. 106 in Park is a music TV show on BET.
I don't think I've ever seen it.
The hosts, their names are AJ and Free. I wrote the bio for Free, the lady that was the other host. But anyway, so I've done a lot of things in my life, and it's that hustle. Like I always want to be doing something that again feeds my soul, that is creative, and that leads to, something dope. I mean, I don't know how else to say it, but
I love it. Like, creating something that leads to something dope, right? And I think as we are drawing to an end for the purpose of this discussion, and I think we can do a whole nother podcast on like a video cast on cannabis if the interest is there. But I feel like you must have done, when people listen to your book or read your book, they'll find somebody who's not only witty and creative, but they find somebody who thinks very well and is very organized and structured in the delivery of their process. And I believe hearing you talk about the compliance work, which I probably would want to shoot myself doing that, but even that you somehow have wrapped your mind around. Are there any personal development books or like tools that you have found over the years that have shaped your thinking, one? Or is that something that you've like more or less learned by osmosis from your family, or what would you say? And then
I think a little bit of both. The resiliency aspect is from my parents, 100%. I mean, I witnessed them build things from nothing or from an idea. So seeing that's possible for them, I'm like, hey, I can do that too.
Yeah.
And that's really my goal. In my mind, I'm like, my parents were at this level. I want to be at the next level with their help, using, their level as a stepping stone.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And on purpose, because I feel like a lot of people, especially like for people of color, not all of us, most of us, I don't think may have like, or may feel like we have a stepping stone. And to be honest with you, I didn't even see them as a stepping stone, because in my mind, I got to go to college. That's my stepping stone.
Right.
But once I got to college and realized, other people using their parents as stepping stones, I'm not thinking like my parents are this and that, but in my mind, I'm like, hey, I've seen them build stuff, so that is a stepping stone.
So why not leverage it?
Right?
Right?
I think that's when I kind of woke up to. Like,
so how old were you when that happened?
18.
18. Did you read any personal development books already then, or did that come later to your life?
So before that, I was reading like sci-fi.
Sure, of course.
That's when I was
sci-fi.
like,
That's
your
genre.
I'm done
What's
reading
your genre?
sci-fi.
Yeah.
That's when I was like, I'm done reading sci-fi.
Yeah.
I need to read things that are going to develop my mind. And I would read sci-fi if it's to like open up some creative portal type of situation. So with a purpose, not necessarily just to, or even if the purpose is to entertain myself, so I can like distract myself from.
Of course.
From, let's say, trying to solve a problem and I'm not finding the solution. You get a distraction, then you come back, you kind of see things from a different lens.
Right, and there's so much value in reading. I mean, we can spend a whole another hour talking in that,
but
learning.
One tool. Let me. There's a book called How to Own Your Own Mind.
How to Own Your Own Mind. Okay.
So that one, in mind, I just read that one. I've read it like 4 or 5 times, to be honest.
Okay, we'll link to that in the show notes.
Or listen to it via audiobook, because it pretty much, that book has all the essence. That it talks to you about why America was built the way it was, for like free commerce and all of that, and then it gives you the mindset, like the different tools for you to pursue, and not on some capitalism type thing, but just like the essence of why people came to America and to be free thinkers. Mm-hmm. And then it even tells you how things went wrong too, so it's not like a biased thing, like this is a kumbaya situation. It even talks, so that's why I love that book. And every time I feel like I need a mentor talk, I go to that book.
So would you say then that's probably one of the most the personal development books that you recommend the most?
Yeah. So Andrew Carnegie and Napoleon Hill. So that it's pretty much based on an interview that Napoleon Hill did with Andrew Carnegie, where he's explaining like the mindset that you have to
I love it.
To succeed.
Yeah, I've read both. I mean, both authors, of course.
Yeah, so that it's a great book.
Oh, awesome.
So I definitely recommend it.
Well, let people know how they can find you.
You can find me. You can check out my website at synergystudios.tv. You can find my book on Amazon. It's in all formats, audiobook, like we said before, digital, and you can get the hard copy. You can follow me on Instagram _JM Balbuena. And yeah, that's it.
Super. Well, thanks for sharing that. Thank you
Yeah,
for being a
thank
guest.
you. I appreciate you.
Yeah, ditto.
This was awesome.
This was super fun.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Guys, thank you so much for watching. If you got some value out of that, please drop a like, hit the notification bell, subscribe to the channel, and we will see you on the flip side. Peace. And I will see you on the flip side. Peace.